Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this introductory video I'm going to give a quick overview of Rose's 12 stories, and we'll take a much closer look at Rose's story number 2. Rose's story number 1 is the definitive answer to 3 of the most important questions that we face as a species. Rose's story number 2 is a very special teaching tool that I created to not only help me answer these 3 questions, but also to show everyone, or show all of us, where we are, where we came from, and how we got here, and how to get back to where we need to be, as well as show everyone where all the pieces logically connect to all the other pieces. Rose's story number 3 is a 3-step process that I perfected so that each and every one of us can play our individual role when it comes to solving every problem that is 100% within our control. Rose's stories number 4, 5, and 6 have to do with the 3 steps. Story number 4 has to do with 3 ways to correct 5 mistakes, and we want to use the only one of those 3 ways that's doable by enough of us so we reach a tipping point. Because if we don't reach the tipping point, we'll never see things change. Rose's story number 5 has to do with 5 main mistakes we're making relative to 5 things we mastered. The first step addresses the willingness issue, so we correct these 5 main mistakes on a temporary basis. The second step corrects these 5 main mistakes on a permanent basis, and then once we add these 5 main mistakes onto our list of mistakes to correct, then we'll take the third step, which is the only thing we have to do, and that's where we're going to satisfy 2 groups of needs. And I call that the science and the art of solving problems that are 100% within our control. And then the degree to which we satisfy these 2 groups of needs will be reflected in Rose's story number 7, a very important piece of the puzzle. This is the condition of all 4 of our current status factors. And the problem we have is we're sick and we're disconnected. And we prey upon ourselves. There's a ripple effect where now we become our own worst enemy. And now everything evolves around us being sick. So, and that evolves around our belief system. That brings us to Rose's story number 8, where we have 21 main problems of knowledge. Rose's story number 9 are the 2 doorways we have to go through to find and apply that knowledge. And that will be reflected in my special teaching tool, and I'll show you where all that fits in just a few seconds. But if we take these 3 steps, then we'll have a brand new reference, and that's story number 10, perhaps the most important piece of the puzzle. Story number 7 is important because we're sick, but we gotta get healthy, and we're going to change the condition of our body. When we have a brand new reference, then we'll be able to get rid of Rose's story number 11, and that's where we also get rid of piece 8.1. That's where we use the wrong approach and expect systems to solve problems that only we can solve. So Rose's story number 12 is where we come to the realization that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the heroes by definition, because a hero is a person who can solve a problem that no one else can solve. Well, most of our problems are self-inflicted. That means that we are the heroes. So now I'd like to take a much closer look at this very special teaching tool that I created. I actually interconnected 2 quadrant systems that both use 2 forms of 2-valued logic, so that each one of the 6 boxes will logically connect to all of the adjacent boxes. And there are 18 connections, or 18 portals, and then I've identified 261 of the most important pieces out of the millions of pieces that are within this 6-box system. So now let's take a look at this 6-box system. I've put it on a Word format spreadsheet, and it's not that easy to see the different boxes the way they are, but if I point to everything, I can identify where the 6 boxes are. I can identify where the 18 portals are at. I can use these piece numbers to illustrate the answer to these 3 important questions. And I can show once again how one piece relates to the other. For example, what's the difference between piece 45 and piece 103? Well, piece 103 is in the 3rd stage of knowledge in Plato's cave, or in the 3rd stage of knowledge on the wrong path, where piece 45 is in the 1st stage of knowledge on the right path. So what happens with 103 is 103 then has a ripple effect, and we get 117 and 118, whereas 45 is a positive ripple effect. When we get 101 and 102, we end up with 113 and 114. So 114 becomes 45. 45 is the experience of the consequences. That's the brand new reference. It's the most important piece of the puzzle. of all the knowledge we need, as you will see in the plus A box of knowledge, the most important knowledge of all is the experience of the consequences. And that's piece number 45 that we get by piece 114. But I can illustrate all of this on my special 6-box system that I have given many names. I've called it the ultimate schematic, I've called it Plato's map, I've called it the hero's map, but it's really 2 maps in one. The bottom half of this 6-box system is Plato's map. The first thing we have to do is get out of Plato's cave. But then once we get out of Plato's cave, we then have to go back to the garden. So now there's the hero's map that shows us what we have to do to end up in a place where there are no problems. And that's important because there are no rulers in a place where there are no problems. That's the definition of paradise. That's the Garden of Eden that we had a long time ago. If we don't make mistakes, we live in a world where we don't have any problems that are within our control. So all of this is going to make a whole lot more sense once I show you my special teaching tool. So I'm going to swing the camera around. I don't want to do any editing. I want this to be as legitimate and low-key as I can be. So I'm going to swing it on around, turn you over, point you down a little bit more so we can take a better look. Zoom us back out. And here is what I have labeled here as the ultimate schematic. And I'll point to the 3 boxes on the top. We've got the plus A box of knowledge right here, the plus B box of right actions, and the plus C box of unlimited potential. On the bottom we have the negative A box of false knowledge, the negative B box of wrong actions or mistakes, and the negative C box of hundreds of thousands of problems. So those are the 6 boxes. Now I've got 18 portals, and that is made up of 6 doorways, 4 gateways, and 8 wormholes. So let's show you where the gateways are right off the bat. We've got 109 that connects the plus A box of knowledge down to the negative B box of mistakes. So how do we get, so what is this all about? 109 is actually the fall of mankind. In other words, there's 2 ways we can make mistakes. We can go straight from the negative A box of false knowledge and apply it and make a mistake, or we can make a mistake whenever we don't apply what we know. So that's what happened to us a long time ago. We didn't satisfy our needs, and we slid down piece 109, and we made our very first big mistake. That's represented as piece 95. Then we get to 103, and then there's a ripple effect where we get 117, that's the negative causal loop, and 118, that's the negative knowledge loop. This is how we reinforce false knowledge because we have an inaccurate belief system. So there are 4 gateways. 109 slides down, 110 goes up. 111 slides down, 112 goes up. So you can see how here's 112, here's 111, here's 109, here's 110. So we go from plus A to a negative B, a negative A to plus B, and then we go from plus B to a negative C, and a negative B to a plus C. How can we go from a negative B to plus C? Well, we build up a tolerance to our mistakes, and we actually derive pleasure out of it. That's why instead of getting a 103 over here, we have a 103 in limbo. These are latent diseases. They haven't manifested into pain yet. And now to help you understand all of this better, let me digress for a moment and show you how this can be represented as 3 main events on 2 event horizons are. We can say there are 3 stages of knowledge on the right path where we start our journey off in life with knowledge and we end up with unlimited potential. Or we have 3 stages of knowledge on the wrong path where we start our journey off in life with false knowledge, we make mistakes and we have problems. And when we think of the 3 stages of knowledge, we want to think of, and let me stop for a second and add some more light to this. When we think of 3 stages of knowledge, the knowledge is acquired in the first stage, applied in the second, and manifested in the third. We can label these A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3. The 3 stages of knowledge can also be thought of as thoughts, actions, reactions, beliefs, causes, effects, the things we think, the things we do or have done to us, and the things we get. So when we look at what we got, there are things we got that are 100% within our control based on the things we do, our lifestyle choices, or there are the things we got that are not 100% within our control based on things done to us, where we have accidents and acts of nature, where we have no control whatsoever, or acts of war, crime, and violence, where we have limited control. So these are the 3 stages of knowledge, and I've got another old diagram that illustrates how this 6-box system can be labeled out this way if we label them a plus A, plus B, a plus C. And then we have a minus A, minus B, plus C. Again, 3 stages of knowledge. There's knowledge and false knowledge. And then we have cause for B and mistakes on the bottom. And then in the C box we have the effects or problems. But you notice there's a plus B1 and a plus B2. But let me show you what this can look like if we go back to just the cause and effect quadrant system. So remember, I interconnected 2 quadrant systems. This is the very first quadrant system I created. Cause and effect, pleasure and pain quadrant system. When we look at our effects, they're either positive or negative. So there's a plus A, plus B, minus B. But remember, there are things we do and things done to us. So actually what we have would be a plus A1, a plus A2, a minus A1, a minus A2. 1, the things we do. 2, things done to us. So then we get a plus B1, plus B2, minus B1, minus B2. And then 1 would be within our control, and 2 is outside of control. Now, since this was my very first quadrant system, I labeled it A and B, but you'll notice when we go back over here, it's not A, B, it's B and C. So we can also overlap this in here and see how that looks. Now let's just do this all by itself, see how that looks. Well, I'm winging this. So this is the cause and effect pleasure pain quadrant system. A1 plus A2, that's positive, minus A1, minus A2. So the point here is when we look at what we got in the negative C box, let's bring back this over here. When we look at what we got, there are either things that are 100% within our control based on the things we do, or there are the things we got that are outside of control. And the problem we have is we don't have the wisdom to know the difference. So now let's go back to the ultimate schematic and take a look at the piece numbers. The first 21 piece numbers represent Rose's story number 8. These are the 21 main problems of knowledge. The number 1 problem of knowledge is not having the knowledge we need. That's piece number 1 in the plus A box of knowledge. Then the number 1 reason why we don't have that knowledge is because we have piece number 2, false knowledge, in its place. And now that's important because we cannot learn anything when we think we already know. And then there are 19 reasons why we don't know, and those pieces are pieces 3 to 21 in the negative A plus A doorway. Remember, there are 18 portals. I showed you 4 gateways. Now there are 6 doorways. I'm showing you the first doorway, the negative A plus A doorway. There's also a doorway going from A to B and B to C on both the right path and the wrong path. And we also have a doorway down here. Remember, if we slide up a 112 because we build up a tolerance to our mistakes and we get a 103 in limbo, 5 or 6 decades down the road we end up with a heart disease or cancer, and then we manifest that latent disease. And that's when we go through the plus C minus C doorway. But remember, Rose's story number 9 has to do with 2 doorways we have to go through to solve our problem. So the first doorway we have to go through is when we make a vertical move. Right now we're doing a negative horizontal loop. We need to make a vertical move, a transformative move, go through the negative A plus A doorway where there are 19 main obstacles or 19 main reasons or 12 sources of false knowledge and 7 wellness factors that are keeping us from finding piece number 1. And piece number 1 has to do with pieces 22 to 35, and these are where we have 2 groups of needs, and 36 to 40 are the 5 things we mastered. So we get in trouble whenever we apply things we mastered to things we need. When we do that, we slide down 109. That's how we get pieces 95 to 99. If we make good applications, we get 75 to 79 instead. If we satisfy all of our needs, we get 61 to 74. And then we end up with 101. But then we also have 80 over here. This is where we have things outside of control, like acts of kindness and acts of love. Down here, 100 is where we have things outside of control, like accidents and acts of nature, where we have no control whatsoever. And we also have acts of war, crime, and violence, where we have limited control. 100 gets you 104. You see they're color-coded the same, just like 80 and 102 is colored the same. But what I did is I wanted to hide these 19 pieces in 101, so I didn't have 19 and 1. I wanted to keep this simple. So when we look at the negative C box of problems, we either have problems that are within our control, 103, or problems that are outside of control, 104. Then when we look back at what we do, we say, okay, we're not satisfying one of our needs. And it turns out that most of our problems are 95 to 99. Now there are 3 ways to correct these 5 mistakes, and those are listed as 41 to 43. Unfortunately, most people aren't willing to do 42 and 43, but they don't even know about it. But if they did know about it, they wouldn't be willing to do it. That's why we want to modify what used to be the best preparation for a better way of life. And that's where we come up with the first of Rose's three-step process. That's piece 41. So when we do 41, we get 75 to 79, 101. Then we have a ripple effect where effects become causes, as in the causal loop. That's 113, and effects become knowledges in the knowledge loop. That's 114. That's when we complete the positive knowledge loop. That's where we get the experience of the consequences. Piece 44 is the knowledge of the consequences. And again, of all this knowledge that we need up here, we need the experience of the consequences. We need to complete the positive knowledge loop. We need to do the 41-45 connection. How does that happen? When we apply 41, we correct the 5 mistakes. We get 101 instead of 103, and instead of completing a negative knowledge loop where we enforce false knowledge, we end up with a brand new reference, and that allows us to correct these 5 main mistakes on a permanent basis. But remember, there's this ripple effect, so now we also have another group of needs we must satisfy. 22 to 35 represents 2 groups of needs. There are 12 essential needs, and there are 2 additional temporary needs that are going to always change as conditions change. And that is where it gets complicated. That is what I call the art of solving problems. The science is simple. It's based on the law of cause and effect. The art is based on the ripple effect and the damage we've done to ourselves, society, and our environment. So again, what we have to do to solve our problems is make a transformative move, go through here and find the knowledge we need, but we have to apply it. You have to go through the second doorway. Again, Rose's story number 9, are there 2 doorways we have to go through. Once we make it to this box, the action box, it's an automatic. We reap what we sow. The effects are automatic unless we have blockers in the doorway. In 106, this is where we put our medical doctors are. That's where piece number 3, which is the number 1 source for false knowledge, puts piece 106. Piece number 3 represents the dark side of our behavior. It's the number 1 problem of knowledge. It's the number 1 thing that reinforces our false beliefs that we think 46 is an art when it's really a sin. And that's because these are our so-called experts, and what they do is they interfere with the body's communication process. They use poisons to interfere with the body's communication process, and so that the signals don't appear, and if that doesn't work, they'll actually cut the sending unit out, the organ, whatever, so that the signals won't manifest. It's an illusion. Piece number 3, the darkest of the dark side of our behavior, are magicians. They're masters of illusion. They're masters of misdirection. And they put our so-called experts in piece 106 so that the body doesn't communicate it to itself and we don't get the symptoms. And then we put prisoners in 105 so that we block their actions. They can't act out on their impure thoughts. Remember, thoughts and actions are beliefs and causes. So this is how we use the wrong approach trying to solve problems in our society. We don't like what we got down here, so we put blockers in here and we put blockers in here. It's a con. It's a magic act. That's not the solution to our problems. The solution to our problems is to make a vertical move, take responsibility, find the knowledge we need, apply it, complete the positive knowledge loop, have the experience of the consequences, and it all begins by testing an idea as time has come. That's piece number 1. We have to test an idea whose time has come. And that's where we do something we've never done before on a temporary basis so we can see what we're missing and then be in a better position to correct these 5 main mistakes on a permanent basis. Remember, not enough of us are willing to do this because we don't know what we're missing. So if we get a better taste for what we're missing, we're in a better position to make a permanent change. It's no guarantee because change is not easy, but the problem is not enough of us are doing it. That's why we have to reach the tipping point, because if we don't reach the tipping point, things will never change. We have to understand that things will never change unless we reach the tipping point. So it's time to get excited. It's time to do the first of a 3-step process that I perfected so that each and every one of us can play our individual role when it comes to solving problems that are 100% within our control.